And welcome back to the Thought Vessel. Welcome to the show. Doing things a little bit different today because we're going to be talking a little bit almost at a State of the Union type of podcast, because we're talking about gatekeeping and magic, universes beyond, and giving everyone a little bit of extra context to where we are with the situation, how we got here, some of the strong points on both sides as far as why people like it or don't like it. I'm joined today, of course, with my co-host, Joe. And then a little bit different, we have Caffeine Rabbit, aka Calf, with us. Some of you originally may have known them as Jacoby. Shifting things a little bit different. I know that most of you know that I do some writing for EDH Rec and Cool Stuff Inc. Joe has some streaming, and Calf is going to be doing some additional stuff, some side projects outside of the podcast with that as their character and alias. Calf, did you have anything you want to say about your design, how it kind of came to be, your inspirations, anything like that?
Sure, absolutely. Calf originates from a lot of different handles I've had over the course of the last couple years. Ended up having some very wonderful artists help me design my wonderful gentleman, which you will probably see right here, looking at you, chugging his drink.
Do not be alarmed. The rabbit is not going to come out of the screen at you.
I am, quote unquote, your friendly domesticated content creator. That being said, I plan to start doing some more development into a lot of what I talk about here with two-headed giant, arch enemy. I'm hoping that soon we'll get the Vessel Verses off of the ground. Yes, 0 days since the last time I talked about two-headed. Once again, you can't stop me.
There was a reason I made that image.
Yippee. But yes, there's a lot of things I'm trying to put in the works, both with and in addition to the podcast itself. I don't just want to only contribute in the small way to our community. Got to branch out a little bit at least to do that.
Be like a coffee tree and branch out.
I think it's important to realize, too, that with a lot of people in this space, we're not getting paid to do this. This is just kind of what we do for fun. And we use it as kind of a way for a creative outlet. I'm not very artistic. I'm not very musical, but I do like creative expression. This is kind of the way I do that, whether it's through the podcast or writing. Joe, of course, likes doing the editing, likes doing streaming and things like that.
Whoa. Like is a strong word.
You enjoy making your memes and having fun.
That is my creative outlet. Also, don't forget, I am a voice actor.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm going to be focusing more on the extra game modes side of Magic the Gathering in the continuous future. I don't think those get enough love in our community to the world.
Also, I have some other things that I'm going to be doing behind the scenes that I'm going to flash to you and leave mysterious to the viewers.
Ooh.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Moving into the conversation for today, I kind of want to start it out with a little bit of a story that I have for my teaching days. Some of you like some of my teaching stories. This was when I was in student teaching. I was working in a high school. Once a week, we'd have a special education class come down to our room. Each student would have a teacher's assistant that would be working with them and everything. And then we would try to put some kind of lesson together to work on some type of fundamental skill, whether it's catching, throwing, kicking, coordination, something like that. Anything that we could do depending on the capabilities of the student that we had. I had one student for the first time. We'll call them Jeremy. Jeremy came into my classroom, and Jeremy was a bit of lower functioning autism. They still could move around and everything. They could talk, but it was harder to have a conversation with them. I didn't know very much about this person out the gate. The first thing they ever did was when they came in my room is they just came to me and just said, "And then the wind stopped," and they just walked away. No additional context. I was like, what the hell was that?
I mean, he came into the room and then when the wind stopped, he is the stopper of wind.
And then he comes up later and goes, blue and blue and blue. I'm like, do I need to report something? What is going on? Turns out that Jeremy was a very, very big fan of a children's book about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, in which they all tried to fly a kite. The wind blew and took one of them off of their feet. They were flying away. The wind stopped. They landed somewhere and they found them. And they got pizza. And that was the whole story. He was narrating parts of this book in different order without giving me any context of what he was doing. When I tried to TA, it made perfect sense. Okay, that's what he was referring to with this. But I was so confused and disturbed in the moment because I just didn't have the full context.
Oh, so how a lot of my references go with people. Got it.
we want to talk a little bit about gatekeeping and magic and universes beyond. Try to give a scope from where both sides are looking at with this. Try to find some understanding of the in-between. Trying to find common ground. We'll make an assessment of where we are with the situation. The reason we're bringing it up is with the next Marvel set coming out, one of the biggest disappointments that we saw was that we got only one of the Infinity Stones. We got the Mind Stone. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I thought it was a very high floor, high caliber card. Admittedly, I don't think it's worth the price that it's at right now. I think that's probably a $20 card instead of a $70 card. It's still a very, very solid Magic card at the end of the day. The reason that people were upset, not because they only got one, it's because it implied that we're having to trudge through 4 more sets of Marvel. And that became incredibly discouraging. One comment that I saw online that kind of prompted all of this was this. This is why you gatekeep.
Part of that is just misunderstanding of when they first talked about their collaboration with Marvel, because that even said that they were going to be doing 5 years. That's just a forgotten fact. People are just, we had Spider-Man and now we have this. There was the Secret Lair. And the complaints are becoming more and more and more as people are then realizing that the contract is finally coming due.
On top of that, there's also possibly the distinct issue that, unlike in previous Magic history when we would get spoilers for sets, the Marvel stuff started its spoiler journey way earlier than most other content. We got spoilers before the beginning of this year even started. That's unheard of, for Magic at least.
It is pretty disturbing to have the spoiler seasons like that. They also are bumping into the in-universes sets. In-universe sets are almost like we're fulfilling our obligation to the fans. Here's an in-universe set. All right, back to the Universes Beyond stuff. Even with the 7 releases this year, 4 of them are Universes Beyond, 3 of them are in-universe. More than half of it is Universes Beyond. When you look at the set release, we get exactly 1 month of Reality Fracture, and then the next set comes out. It doesn't really give you enough time to actually appreciate any of the cards from Reality Fracture. As soon as the set's released, take a look at this new Spock or look at this new Data. They're going to be spoiling stuff during that time, ruining the ability to appreciate anything Universes Within.
We just aren't getting as much Universes Within either. This year's been particularly crazy on that front.
I would at least put that at the feet of WotC specifically and not necessarily the sets. That being said, some of the sets were stinkers.
To understand the full scope of Universes Beyond and why people are upset, we have to go back to the beginning. The first time that we ever saw Universes Beyond wasn't with a full set. It was actually a secret lair. And that was
The Walking Dead.
Bingo. It was done in a limited print run. There was one card that is still seeing play today, which was Rick. It helped with human type, gave all your humans +2/+2, and then you had 2 of 3 keywords to pick. Vigilance, First Strike, and Lifelink.
And this was also at the time before WotC changed it, and likely because of this secret lair, from only being available for a week to the extended month. We see how well that worked out.
That became the issue with the Universes Beyond. Even YouTubers were sarcastically making new formats called General that were Commander, but they couldn't use the Universes Beyond stuff that was direct to consumer. That did not go over well, overrun by toxicity, and that channel definitely suffered the consequences of that. And I don't think they ever recovered the same way whenever that came out. Problem was, and this is going to be a recurring theme you're going to see throughout Magic history, there was a lot of online discourse complaining about how terrible it was, how awful it was, and don't support this decision. It was their best-selling secret lair of all time. What the community was saying versus what actually was happening was 2 very, very different things.
Given the context that it was only available for a week, sometimes the FOMO does just win out, and that's why it can still be a best-selling set. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's an actual good thing, because saying that Spider-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did well because it was a high-selling set, it was brought up that it was a high-selling set from WotC to distributors and not necessarily of people who play the game.
It's really interesting how they figure out what they think is popular based off of only their sales record and not a lot of the community feedback I would normally expect them to engage with. There was a long period where we had a big community outcry against having a whole slurry of Universes Beyond, and yet here we are getting more than we've ever asked for. It's kind of interesting.
We'll come back to that too, because when you look at the Universe Beyond, the next exposure we got was very sporadic. We would have a set come out, stuff like the Brothers War, we'd have some Transformers cards sprinkled in, or we'd have Jurassic Park cards sprinkled into Ixalan, where they're Universes Beyond, but they were kind of off to the side, get them in regular boosters. Or we might have some precons come out, like we had with Fallout or Warhammer. The Universes Beyond, but it was self-contained Commander. Didn't really have any impact anywhere else. It was just kind of something for fun. People enjoyed them. They sold very, very well. And then we started getting the sets. One of the most influential sets in Magic's history came out, the Lord of the Rings set, which had the One Ring, very, very powerful artifact, currently on the Game Changers list, along with Orcish Bowmasters. Both saw immediate play in several different formats. The serialized One Ring that ended up being pulled by a vendor in Canada and sold to Post Malone for $2.6 million. Sold a ton of packs, everyone trying to get that Willy Wonka golden ticket out of their collector booster. This pushed a lot of things, and they started seeing, oh, if we make limited edition exclusive types of sets, they will sell very well, people trying to pull that chase card.
There's also, I guess, one of the weird, interesting notes to add to that is that since Lord of the Rings, we haven't seen any additional instances where we have that 1 of 1 or 1 of 500 chase card in a while, except for the artifacts back in Brothers War. I don't remember the last time we actually had serialized or there's only this many of them out there cards for any sets recently.
I believe it's the Ancestral Recall on a Stick guy.
Emeritus of Ideation.
Yeah. In these sets, they've been putting like one serialized card in it per set now.
Which at least has fixed your own opinion previously that they were doing way too much. Now that it's just sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle.
It's really interesting because whenever the serialized cards came out, I ended up buying a couple. They were pretty cheap. I picked up a serialized Cinder Vines for like $75. That card is over 100. Picked up a Lavinia Azorius Renegade. That one's got up in value because whenever they're like, oh, we can sell serialized cards, they made serialized everything, flooding the market. Got to the point that if everything's special, nothing's special, and they've scaled back. So the serialized cards are becoming more unique. They've learned how to successfully pace that correctly. That's been a good development as far as the selling with everything. It wasn't as significant as it used to be. Shifting focus here, back to the Lord of the Rings set. At that point, they were pushing the boundaries. They weren't fully committed because this is the first time that everything was modern legal. Prior to this, everything was just kind of Commander legal. This is the point, all right, we're going to get into modern. And this started taking over that format very, very aggressively. But Standard was still left untouched from having Universes Beyond. Still wanted to do Magic Universes Within, but you could go play Standard. And that was kind of the argument for a long time.
And there was already an issue with them just doing straight to modern sets. Man, modern is definitely not in a great place right now.
It is not. They started learning the lesson from that as well. Also had repercussions. They've tried to resolve that by putting those extra special guest artist reprints into standard sets and things just to kind of balance things out instead of just having a master set that sells a bunch. As soon as we got Universes Beyond with that, and then we started getting some more precons here and some secret layers here and there with different IPs. And then we had that Assassin's Creed set. Had some really cool cards, but it was the Aftermath format that nobody liked because it wasn't draftable.
Which I believe Spider-Man was also going to be like that, but they were able to reverse course on Spider-Man, but not the Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. On the topic of Universes Beyond, getting feedback again on something that I thought was interesting. Do you either of you remember when they were going to release a Monster Hunter Secret Lair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the very few times I've seen Wizards actually listen to enough people be like, hold up, maybe we messed up here. They rescinded that. We're going to rework this because it's wrong and bad.
Which is a different thing that can sound gatekeepy, but it's not. A lot of the secret lair drops, even if it isn't Universes Beyond, have been a lot more minimal effort and not necessarily going with flavor or what was actually good with that kind of collaboration. The value just not being there.
But then we started getting Universes Beyond sets that were going to be standard legal. And this is the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of different people. Admittedly, yes, Walking Dead was a little bit too far. People were very annoyed that there was cars in the background of the art. Why is there a Toyota Camry in the background of my commander? At that point, we started getting some issues moving to standard. I would say the second most influential set as of late was Final Fantasy. Lord of the Rings did a phenomenal job. Final Fantasy went even farther. But these cards went straight into standard, which caused massive issues. Vivi, one of the strongest commanders to come out in a very, very long time, currently showing up in just the commanders as the 8th most popular commander of all time, or at least of the decks produced in the last 2 years, on a parabolic raise, only overshadowed by Y'shtola and Knights Blessed, who just took out Atraxa and is now at number 3 all time. These are very, very pushed, very, very powerful cards. It's sold like crazy. We started getting scalpers into this hobby, something that we hadn't really dealt with prior to this point, to that level.
I was about to say, just more scalpers.
We've gotten some, but it was nowhere near to this extent. Yes, there's people who are going to go in and try to raid secret layers and stuff like that. This is when we started getting people like buying boxes, and we started seeing a lot more, we're going to open a collector booster in our car. That kind of content became a lot more popular as the pack ripping culture became more of a thing in Magic at that point. And then, as almost a gift from the nerd gods, Spider-Man dropped. A very, very funny experience because there was 2 parties involved. Party number 1 was the scalpers that said, Universes Beyond for Final Fantasy was this popular. Spider-Man's going to be just as popular, if not more. We should go buy a bunch of Spider-Man boxes. And then Magic players were like, a lot of these cards are really, really bad. There's not a lot of good stuff in this set. We don't want this. You had a lot of scalpers buying a whole bunch of boxes with no market to sell. And a lot of these people lost a lot of money on that. And I do not feel bad about that at all.
As the saying goes, scalpers.
Perish.
Spider-Man got to a point where anything that was negative publicity about Universes Beyond got justified with Spider-Man. Because you had this set that obviously looked like it was going to be a lot smaller than it was, got grossly expanded out to be a standard legal set. A lot of cards that didn't really need to exist, a gajillion different variations of Spider-Man. The card pool was incredibly deep that it didn't need to be. There wasn't a lot of high value stuff to be had or interesting things that we would be interested in buying versus Edge of Eternities that sold very, very well. Spider-Man, which is like, I guess we'll just tolerate this until the next set comes out. There were some cool cards here and there, but if you were buying packs, you're like, I don't have any use for this at all. And then we started having jokes of the newest plane in Magic is New York, because we keep going back with Marvel and Ninja Turtle sets just to Manhattan or, Devil's Kitchen or Bronx or whatever.
It's crazy that there's a whole bunch of different IPs where it's just set in New York.
Crazy.
And people have joked about making like a New York cube and stuff like that. That's catching us up to where we are today. We got the Ninja Turtle set. That one did better than Spider-Man. Some people still had some complaints about that. And then we have the new Marvel set coming out now. The concern I have with Marvel, these sets are massive. They're trying to cover every version or every hero they possibly can. I feel like by the time we get to the 4th, 5th, 6th set, we're just going to be exhausted. I'm exhausted after the 2nd set. And I got the Great Lakes Avengers. I love the Great Lakes Avengers, but I didn't need those as Magic cards.
Specifically, it's bringing up an argument that we talked about before the show and also has been just prominent in the community of more and more and more commanders being released each year. I did an experiment with my friend. I asked him, what was the number of commanders that were released that were not reprints in 2010? That number was 14. Wild how we're getting to, as we calculated it on the show for just this year, and we're already halfway through the year, 473 with the Marvel set.
And this is with Wizards of the Coast talking about wanting to scale back on Legends, but they said we can't do it with Universes Beyond because they want everything to be a commander eligible card.
And this set also was just every creature that was uncommon or higher was a legendary creature. They literally said that. There is no uncommon creature in the Marvel set that is not legendary.
It's an interesting problem to have because you have a lot of these legendary creatures, but very few of them actually are getting a ton of attention. A lot of them just kind of get thrown off to the side because they're just not popular enough. Or if it's not jumping off the page at you and you got a new set coming out in a month with something that is, you're probably not going to pay attention to it. A lot of the stuff from Marvel is going to be coming back around in a year or two when someone actually figures out and discovers it.
They're also used for draft slots. Their abilities aren't going to be powerful except for more in a draft environment.
You just exhaust the rest of the community because we got another 400 commanders I had to look at, see if there's anything I want to build. That's a lot of work.
Just the amount of sets already kind of exhausted the community because gone are the days where we had, 4 sets in a year?
Yeah. Looking at the idea of gatekeeping, A lot of people with gatekeeping fall into one of two camps. Either one, they look at their hobby or IP in a competitive sense. They want to prove that they're a better fan than you are of something. You'll see a lot of this with like bands and stuff like that. You're a Post Malone fan, name 5 of his songs. They're trying to make it so only the diehards they'll have conversations with. There's no such thing as a casual fan. You see this with sports teams a lot too. Are you a diehard fan? Do you know every little piece of trivia about this franchise, or do you just like the team? If you're buying a ticket to the game and you're cheering on the home team, I don't think it matters if you know everybody or not.
And it just goes to show that those people are not ADHD coded because, oh, hey, this person doesn't know a thing. Let me gush.
Very, very true. The second camp is people who are protective of their hobby or IP. This is something more with the gaming side of things where you see a trend of things that are coming in and they want to prevent that from happening. They're trying to encourage people that agree with their ideas and discourage people who don't agree with their ideas. We're seeing this a lot with the Marvel and Lord of the Rings and Star Trek and a lot of these universes beyonds coming in, because when we look at sales data that Wizards has disclosed, admittedly, we don't have their balance sheets. Could be legit, could not sure. We are far from financial analysts in the ability to make these assessments. If these are the sets that are selling the universes beyond from a strictly business perspective, if you're just someone who's taking over or managing a company and you're trying to turn a profit, this is where you're going to want to focus all of your time. A lot of the discourse online, admittedly, this is the people who are actually posting stuff on the internet, maybe 10% of the actual population of Magic players, if that. These are the ones who are vehemently opposed to universes beyond or things like that. But if the data shows it's selling, they're going to assume that this is what people like. You have people who gatekeep that are saying, if you're going to be coming into this hobby and buying a bunch of this garbage and then giving a positive feedback loop to Wizards that we want this absolute slop, we want to fortnitification our Magic hobby, they're going to try to do what they can to protect that. It's a bit of a double-edged sword because by preventing new players to get in the game, you're destroying it yourself.
It goes back to what I said with WotC tracking selling to distributors. From what I've seen and heard from other content, the distributors cannot buy less of those sets because if they do, they will get less sets moving forward with WotC. It's kind of a weird self-fulfilling prophecy of WotC keeps saying these are the best-selling sets of all time when the distributors are still kind of just beholden to them.
There's a very aggressive appetite for universes within. There's a reason that for a lot of different local game stores, Secrets of Strixhaven was the best-selling pre-release of all time.
Right after New Lorwyn, too.
Yeah.
If we were able to get that TV show or movie off the ground and get some actual IP for just Magic lore out there, you'd have a better chance of getting some more popular interest in that, getting just off of the audiobook/online chapters. You also want to have as many people get into your hobby as you can. I'm known in my friend group as the Magic guy, especially for my friends who don't play Magic, just because I write articles and we do the podcast. Every once in a while, I'll have someone who asks me questions about it, whether they saw their favorite video game streamer playing Magic one time, or maybe they stumbled across a Game Night's YouTube video and they said it looks fun. I'll simply answer their questions, let them discover things on their own. At some point, maybe they'll ask, I'm looking to pick up Recon, what should I pick up? Or something like that. And then at that point, we can talk. If they want to get better, I'll give them some tips and ideas as far as upgrading or just piloting better. Let it expand from there. But if that person's starting out oh, well, don't pick up the Marvel because that's going to be crap and you're going to support the wrong thing. Or if I'm adding a lot of extra qualifiers, I'm putting that person off of the game and they're not going to be able to get into this hobby that a lot of people love. They're not going to get a chance to experience in really neat community.
Basically, it just comes down to don't immediately attack something when somebody is trying to show interest in something. There was a lot of discourse online about that specifically. This is actually going back to that one, I think it was a Modern or a Legacy player that wrote an entire thing that called Universes Beyond enjoyers pigs eating slop. Wildly rude, also wrong.
In addition to something like that, there's something to be said about someone coming into this game that we love and your own opinions of not liking that particular IP. I'm not super invested, as an example, to something like The Walking Dead, like we mentioned earlier. I don't care about Rick Grimes. The card is really good, but you show me Walking Dead in Magic, and I kind of just shrug my shoulders I don't care. that should also be with the discretion that I do not tell other people you are this kind of player for liking that content. I wouldn't want someone to disparage me because I love Final Fantasy and it's my lifeblood. Why should I hate on you or any of your opinions about a particular IP in our game if I don't want that behavior done to me too?
Giving some examples, we had Reversal Wizard on the show talking about what it's like to own a local game store and kind of some secrets and stuff from that. It was a fantastic interview. If you haven't checked that episode out, please do. He talked about people joining during the pandemic and stuff like that. But a lot of people came in with Lord of the Rings. What we're seeing a lot of times happening, a lot of people who will want to buy, for the sake of argument, they get the Samwise and Frodo precon. They'll buy that and they'll play it for a while. They'll like it. They'll have fun. Maybe they win a game or two. Maybe they see a cool synergy or interaction. And then at some point, some people just like to have the precon, put it on a shelf, bring it out every once in a while, play some nerdy card games with math rocks with their friends and have a couple drinks and just have a good time. Totally fine. Not everyone has to turn this into a full-time job. Not everyone becomes a content creator. Some players, they want to maybe look to improve their deck a little bit. Maybe they'll look at some universes within cards that have some food synergies and they'll add some of those. Maybe they'll find a card in the set that they like and they want to build that too. A bunch of universe within or other universe beyond and build a deck that way. And at that point, you're having a person who's in the hobby. They're trying out a lot of different things. Maybe they end up going to like MagicCon and stuff like that. This is a very organic pipeline for people getting into the game. It happens because they just really wanted to have a Frodo and Samwise Gamgee memorabilia or game piece that they could interact with.
There is also a community that even before WotC was doing Universes Beyond, that was just making their own custom Magic cards that were a lot of these characters from outside of Magic and asking themselves, what abilities would they have? What would their color be? Doing that kind of introspection. And naturally, because this discourse was happening online before that, WotC saw a need and want for going outside of the Magic sets to at least produce that. And especially because we are in an age of wanting to attach ourselves to a lot of different IP. The nostalgia is real. A lot of these are just very much favorites of people. And why wouldn't we want to at least see it in other media? We're coming at this from the side of we're just the Magic players, but other people are coming into the game because that was their favorite thing. They're glad to see something else that they can go into. If that means that we can say, come here, we can teach you the game. Here's this other thing that can become your favorite. I like it. This is my shiny.
There's nothing wrong with having more interaction within our community to reach out for more outstanding IPs at the end of the day. My issue is when we get people who want to really play with the line between what a Magic game should consist of and what a Magic game does consist of. When we have archetypes we just don't have enough of. People who look at something like a typal deck that doesn't have the types it needs and starts choosing to add cards that could be in the set, but then are willing to treat that more like the reality than the fanciful daydreams. Custom commander cards are always funny and they're interesting at home, not so much the group setting when you go out with strangers. I guess it's interesting to consider the idea between what you think a group of Magic the Gathering players and IPs are acceptable versus what you find personally acceptable, like in the confines of being like at home or amongst really close friends.
I get where people are coming from with gatekeeping. You want to keep things the way it was, but the reality of the situation is the world changes all the time. This isn't unique to just pop culture or gaming. If you want something to continue to adapt and produce more things, it's going to try to attract as many people as possible. Part of that is by putting out things that are popular for a lot of people, like Marvel stuff. That's okay. They might get in through Marvel, but then they may end up exploring and finding out that Jace is a pretty cool character. Nicol Bolas is a really cool villain, or the Phyrexians are neat. It ends up happening as we go through different channels of things. I talked to someone at a wedding I recently went to, and they said they got in through Magic through that Spider-Man set. I don't think there was a lot of good cards, but they liked Spider-Man. That got them into the game, and that's really awesome. Everyone's going to have a different preference. Just be welcoming to everybody. And then hopefully down the road, maybe we get some kind of format that's just universes within. You have a space for that. Trying to kick somebody out to protect what is already broken, I don't think it's viable.
First off, saying Jace is cool is cringe.
Rude.
No, incorrect. It is actual factual correct that Jace is cringe.
Bro is over here like, Jace is cringe. Get him out of here.
I own multiple Funko Pops of Jace. Don't talk about my boy like that.
The story agrees with me.
He's neat. He's overprinted, but he's neat.
I will give you neat. Cool is a different thing. Gatekeeping only serves to suffocate your community. If you are trying to hold information from people that are trying to casually just enjoy it, it's not able to flourish and it becomes left by the wayside. We've seen that with comic books. We've seen that with other games. At least Magic and comic books, they like just the art, which is valid. Sometimes they can only like the lore. That's valid. They find interesting ways to play the game. Everything is valid. You want people to have that interest because then we are not in the days where you're just trying to find someone to play the game with.
No additional thoughts.
Head empty.
Head empty. The caffeine is getting in.
Oh no.
Similar to the comic books, I want to talk about Comic-Con. When Comic-Con first came out, and we'll go off of the 1964 New York Comic-Con, that drew about 100 people. Strictly talking about buying and selling comic books from different vendors. Comic books got very popular, but there was a time in which baseball and horseback racing was the most popular sports in America. As people got older, invented automobiles, and we had less people that were personally attached to horses, horseback riding kind of fell to the wayside. We got more things like football that were more popular because they didn't really have any attachment to horses. With San Diego Comic-Con in 2025, it had about 135,000 people. Is it that warehouse room that's just buying and selling comic books anymore? Absolutely not. You got video game panels, you got celebrities you get autographs and pictures taken with, trailers and Q&As.
Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering. The overall health of the comic book world blossomed because we were able to get into cartoons, movies, video games, and a bunch of other things. It's still around and you can buy subscriptions and see like digital versions of comic books and stuff too. It may not be that small little quaint warehouse convention it once was, but it helps proliferate your hobby, even if it took it in a way that you weren't really familiar with. Well, that is all the time we have for this episode. I've been Levi.
I've been Cav.
And I'm Joe.
And this is The Thought Vessel. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on when you're tuning in. Goodbye.
Take care.
Throw open the gates. Enjoy your hobbies with other people.
Oh no, the cards, they rain.
You just had to say friend.
And enter.